Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at a little 3-game slate here on Tuesday night, Nate. A couple game videos for you and our player props as we're bringing you each and every weekday of this regular season. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. In this one, we're looking at the Clips and the Blazers. A ton of guys out in this one for the matchup in Portland, but we'll get into all that here in just a minute. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content up for you guys all season long, and our odds finder tool that you can go ahead and use to make sure you're shopping those lines, getting the best juice back on those bets you make in the NBA this season. Nate, let's get into this little 3-game slate and then touch on Clips and Blazers.
Yeah, you mentioned guys being out, and that's the key thing to watch here in this first game. Knicks are -5 at Detroit. But we don't know if Detroit's going to get Jaden Ivey or Bojan Bogdanovic back in the lineup. They're obviously missing Cade Cunningham for a long time here. I don't think they can hang with the Knicks at home if they don't have one or both of those guys. So might want to bet that one, or at least wait for the injury news. The other game we break down is Warriors -2 at Dallas. Totals at 228 there. Always crazy when those two teams meet. We are looking at Luka. We're looking at Clay in terms of our player props. So check in on those in that video. And then this game, Clippers +3.5 at Blazers. That hasn't moved. The total has been bet down from 214 to 211 as we speak. And that's where I start, Josh. I said to you, this is kind of like an NFL quarterback having a passing prop around 160, like we saw Marcus Mariota this weekend. And it's like you could stumble backwards into a total like that in the NBA today. I mean, betting the under would be terrifying. You need both teams to hover around 100 points for it to be a close game. And I mean, both are. If you look at their entire season averages, they're both top 10 in defense. I mean, Clippers are top 7 in just about every defensive category. They also play at an insanely slow pace and attempt the fewest field goals. And, you know, there's numbers to convince you to bet this under, which people are doing right now, but It's so low. And I mean, the first thing I start at is who's out for the Clippers. Obviously no Kawhi Leonard. He's barely played all year, but no Paul George. And he's been out 4 games now. The Clippers, their defensive rating is 6 points higher in that span, 114. Their assists are going up as well, and their scoring is going up, 111.5 in those 4 games. And you look at Portland, you know, both of these teams recently are allowing the second and third highest assist to field goal ratio. They're both letting you get into your stuff. They're letting you share the ball. And both teams on the offensive end are number 1 and number 2 on the season in terms of sharing the ball and getting each other buckets. So, I mean, the worry with the only reason to bet unders with the Clippers when they're this low is to say they don't have anybody who can put the ball in the basket. They don't have anybody who can ISO except maybe Reggie Jackson and just get you a bucket in the half court. But if their team scheme is working, which we saw in the playoffs under Ty Lue, then all of a sudden T-Man's flying around, you know, Zubac is getting those buckets down low, and they're going to be able to score. They've been a little bit more efficient on the road this year. They're 29th overall in rating on offense, but 22nd on the road. And Portland scoring 8 more points per game at home, playing at a pace 3 possessions faster, scoring 3 more points per game. Also the 5th worst 3-point defense at home. So there's reason to like some points. I'm not talking about an offensive explosion here, but 211, a 109-103 game is going to get you there. The Blazers coming off a rough road trip here. The last 4 on the road without Dame, lost 3 of them. They're 5-2-1 to the over after a loss. They're also 5-3 straight up after a loss. I mean, I lean Blazers. I have a hard time trusting them without Dame, but I think if you look at just Dame being out versus Paul George being out, Portland has a lot more experience playing without Dame right now. I mean, it's been the case most of last season and for at least half of this season now at this point with his 2 separate injuries. I think they also have an advantage down low because Zubac just carried the Clippers with a Shaq line against the Pacers, and Yusuf Nurkic has eaten him up. He loves these kind of profile matchups against Jokic or against, a tough team down low. And last time he welcomed Zubac, he had 14 and 17. He was a plus 22. Zubac had 3 and 5 and was a negative 15. So I think we know who's going to win that one down low. Portland had a 20 rebounding advantage in that game, and they needed 42 points from PG, did the Clips, to hang in there. So I definitely lean Blazers as they come back home here. But I think I kind of like the over if you're just looking to capitalize, if you can get this while it's low, because I think it will go back up.
Yeah, I mean, it should, but I'm not positive. I think everyone's going bananas on the totals this year. Remember when we had a 239 Kings Hawks total the night before? We thought it was going to go down. It went up. So, like, what if this 211 goes down? I don't know. I'm not saying wait for it, but yeah, I would definitely go over before I went under. I mean, look, the Blazers are scoring 4 points less, but roughly 3 points less without Dame in the lineup this season. They haven't been an offensive juggernaut by any means. We kind of thought they might show a little bit more, but really the thing is without Dame, it's really the Anthony Simons, Jeremy Grant show. And a lot of other guys seem to sort of recede a bit more, and we were kind of hoping that guys like maybe Sharp or Nasir Little or guys like that might show a little bit more improvement without Dame. But even, especially like Nurk, also not quite the same player without Dame. So I mean, look, Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant skyrocket in their totals. I think that's what I look for more than anything in this game is like with the stars out, what happens? What are the trends here? And the trends are Jeremy Grant goes for 25, 4, and 3.5 assists a game without Dame in the 9 games Dame's missed. Anthony Simons, we've been saying it since last season, but I mean this season it's even actually a little bit more telling. 27 points a game, 26.5 roughly, 6 assists as well, and 3 boards in the 7 games that he's played without Dame Lillard this season, getting about 40 minutes a game in there, which is another huge part of this, with a roughly 29-30% usage rate for Anthony Simons. So all these things are things that I rely on a little bit more than who's going to be able to pull this game out, mostly because of everything you just said, relating to how what they are without Dame in terms of finishing games and being able to pull things out. Interestingly, I believe they won that game in the clutch on a Josh Hart buzzer beater without Dame against the Suns earlier this season, which might lead you to think that they're still pretty clutch without Dame, but they are not. Unsurprisingly, the Blazers are not as good in the fourth quarter without Damian Lillard. Another reason for 4 of those losses over their last 5 or so. So I'm nervous to bet on them. I would love to bet against the Clips without their 2 guys in, but I think it's mostly the game theory here is there's going to be more points scored for the, on both sides, with the Clippers playing a little bit faster and passing it around a lot more without their 2 stars in. Also much worse without 2 of their 2 stars in, who are 2 of the best defensive players in the league, in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So there's a lot of conflicting factors. Similar to the other game that we talked about, I'm leaning props before I'm starting to look at too much who's going to win or what the total will be. And specifically the guys that we talk about consistently, maybe some Anthony Simons, some Jeremy Grant, some Reggie Jackson, maybe some Terrence Mann. Look at some of that kind of stuff. But mostly for this one, it's just a tough slate tonight on a Tuesday night. I hope you have some other plans other than just sitting around and watching these basketball games where there's not that many units coming in from me anyway, outside of some of these player props tonight.
Don't listen to him. Bet big. Bet big if you can get it at 211. I'm gonna hit that as soon as we're done here if I can get it at that number. Another thing to think about though is the Clippers. Both teams on the front end of a back-to-back. The Clippers had a real trend of losing the front end last couple seasons, and then they were like 9-1 on the back end of a back-to-back. And they're going to Utah tomorrow night. Utah's reeling. I think there's a chance that they just, this is a team that doesn't necessarily take the regular season seriously, as we see by who they play. A team that is just kind of going through the motions at times. And Portland's, going to have their back against the wall after losing 4 of their last 5 of their last 6, in fact, 4 last games without Dame. Look, their last home game, they lost to Utah, but Dame went 2 for 14 and then checked out with an injury. I mean, that's like an emotional gut punch and kind of disrupting your offense because he was having an off night. Yeah. Other than that, they've been very good at home against some really good competition. Remember, they blew out Denver earlier this season at home. The Clippers, their last road game at Golden State, how do you let the Warriors shoot 51 threes? Like, what are you doing defensively in terms – they kept them off the line. That's great. But I mean, the fact that the Warriors only hit only 19 threes, I mean, that's just very troubling when you have a Blazers team that can get hot from three. I mean, certainly Simons can. But then on the other end, the Clippers were able to get to the line 27 times, draw 26 fouls on the Dubs. So even in a very slow paced game, that got to 231. The Clippers, the only times they've gone under 210 recently have been against the Pistons, who, like I said, don't have anybody right now, and the Mavs, who, like we said in the other video, are kind of under machines and are willing to play at that 90 pace that the Clippers are playing. The Blazers are at least playing an NBA average pace, a little bit faster at home, scoring more at home. And I do like Nurk, his props, and I do like Portland to win this game and hopefully push us over.
Yeah, and what we're also banking on is kind of what you touched on at the end there, which is 3-pointers, which really, once you get the amount of threes that we're probably going to see from these two teams, even without Dame and especially without PG and Kawhi, and there's there's not many other ways for the Clips to win. They still remain in the top 15, and it actually goes, they're like 12th in terms of 3-point attempts and their 3-point percentage. They're actually defending the three pretty well, but as we said, that goes down as well when you take out PG from this lineup on the perimeter there. So I think the over does feel a little bit better when you see that a lot of threes are going to be taken in this game, and you only need a few of them to go in. As you mentioned, all the barrage of threes that came from the Dubs as they put up a big number on the Clips. So that's all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We will be back with you each and every weekday of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.